Welcome to my YouTube channel, Dreamify Animation. Today's story will take you on a journey across the red deserts of Mars, where dust hides secrets, and humanity's survival depends on the courage of one lost soul. The silence on Mars was not empty. It breathed, watched, and remembered. The year was 2179, and Earth was no longer home. Decades of war, famine, and climate collapse had driven the most powerful nations to seek sanctuary elsewhere. Among the stars, Mars had been the most promising, close, stable, and just wild enough to challenge the human spirit. The first wave of settlers came in silence, tucked into cryochambers, leaving behind a world crumbling beneath rising tides and smog-choked skies. They didn't come to terraform, they came to survive. Among them, a child was born, not of Earth, but under the twin shadows of Phobos and Deimos. Her name was Lyra, the first Martian-born human. She had never seen a tree, never tasted rain. Her sky was red, always red, stretching endlessly over a sea of iron dust. The colony she grew up in, Ethernine, was a dome of tempered glass and steel buried deep into Valles Marineris, the largest canyon in the solar system. It wasn't much, a string of hydroponic labs, mining silos, AI-run clinics, and one single learning pod shared by all children. Life was efficient, controlled, dry, every breath filtered, every step tracked, every word stored in logs monitored by the Council of Migration, a governing body back on Earth orbit that hadn't physically visited Mars in over 40 years. But Lyra was not efficient. She was curious. At age 9, she dismantled a colony maintenance drone and rebuilt it into a dancing bot she named Dot. At 12, she hacked into the outer perimeter logs and discovered that 3 explorers had disappeared outside Dome 3, and their disappearance had been wiped from all public records. By 15, she was marked as Deviation Class Beta, a silent flag in the system labeling her behavior as a threat to colony order. She didn't care, because Lyra had dreams, not just the programmed learning sequences that played in every student's neurovisor at night: Earth history, hydroengineering, Mars survival tactics, but real dreams. Dreams of singing wind, of oceans that whispered, of voices echoing through canyons, and one voice in particular, calling her name, Lyra. It started on her 16th solar birthday. She was alone in the observation pod, staring at the Martian horizon as the sun dipped below Olympus Mons, bathing the sky in crimson fire. Then she heard it, a whisper, not from her earpiece, not from the speaker grid, but from the air itself, thin, brittle, but undeniably alive. She sat up. Hello. Silence. Then again, Lyra. She scrambled to scan frequencies. No pings. She checked air filtration for anomalies. Nothing. Her heart raced. There were no ghosts on Mars, only systems and schedules. But something was out there. Something ancient. Something waiting. The next day, Lyra filed a report. The system auto-flagged it as audio hallucination, mild, prescribed her a rest period, and restricted her from outer dome access for 72 hours. She didn't rest. Instead, she broke curfew and snuck into the archive chamber, the oldest part of the colony where data from the first settlers was still preserved in raw form. There she uncovered something unexpected, a restricted mission file labeled Project Hemera, time-stamped from the year 2138 years before the colony was officially established. The file contained blurry footage. Explorers in bulky suits, standing before a jagged cave mouth beneath the Martian crust. One of them, panting heavily, muttered, "It's not a cave, it's a gate." The footage glitched, then ended. Every document after that was marked redacted. Lyra's hands trembled. She copied what she could and fled. What was Hemera? A code. Name, a ship. Or something older. The voice called again that night, louder. Find the threshold. She didn't sleep. Instead, she watched the footage again and again, slowing every frame. Behind the explorers, etched into the rock, was a symbol, circular, woven with lines like roots or veins. She drew it in her journal. It burned in her thoughts. By morning, she had made up her mind. She would leave AETHER-9. It was a death sentence. Beyond the dome, the temperature dropped to -80 degrees Celsius at night. Dust storms could tear metal apart in minutes. Oxygen was scarce, but Lyra didn't fear death. She feared silence. The kind that buries truth. The kind that lives in the bones of those who forget who they are. And so, under the cover of a false maintenance request, she stole an old exploration suit, 2 oxygen tanks, nutrient bars, and Twirl, her loyal dancing bot, now equipped with mapping protocols and limited AI. They exited through the old mining hatch at dawn. Lyra had memorized the coordinates from the Project Hemera file. The location was 73 kilometers west of the colony, past a region known only as the Shattered Veil, a no-go zone declared off-limits due to unstable terrain. Twirl buzzed nervously. Warning, surface instability detected. Recommend return. No. Lyra whispered, "We're going forward." The landscape shifted as they walked dunes of red and orange bleeding into blackened canyons. At night, the stars pierced like diamonds, and Phobos skimmed across the sky like a blinking eye. On the third day, the storm came. A monstrous wall of dust, kilometers high, roaring like 1,000 drums. Lyra activated her storm anchor, driving metal rods into the sand and tethering herself to the slope of a cliff. Twirl buried itself nearby, shielding its circuits. For 14 hours, the storm howled. Lyra recited stories to herself to stay awake. Stories of Earth, of oceans she had never seen, of a place where the sky wept and the trees sang. When the storm cleared, half her oxygen was gone. But so was the final stretch. She had arrived. Before her lay a scar in the land, a massive crack, hundreds of meters wide, as though the planet itself had been sliced open. Within it, at the base, was the cave from the footage, and above it, that same symbol, but it was no longer etched. It glowed. Twirl scanned the air. Unidentified energy signature. Magnetic resonance fluctuating. Lyra stepped forward. The ground hummed beneath her boots. The voice came again, no longer a whisper. Enter. The moment she crossed the threshold, her world changed. The cave was not a cave. It was smooth, warm, alive. The walls pulsed faintly, as if breathing. Symbols danced like liquid light, rearranging themselves into forms she almost understood. Language not built for the human mind, but not hostile. A low vibration filled the space, not mechanical, but organic, musical, like a song remembered. From childhood, then came the vision. She was floating, not in space, but in memory. Not her own. Images, tall figures with eyes like mirrors, walking under purple skies. A city carved into crystal. A catastrophe, fire, ice, silence. Then an arc, a choice, a seed buried in the Martian soil. She gasped. This was not just a shelter. It was a vault, a memory bank of a lost civilization, and they had chosen Mars as their tomb, or their rebirth. When Lyra awoke, she was outside the cave, the symbol now dark behind her. 12 beeped. System log corrupted. Time discrepancy. 63 hours missing. She felt different, sharper, connected. The voice inside her no longer whispered. It lived in her blood. She returned to Ether 9 under arrest, but something had changed. Plants in the hydroponics chamber began growing twice as fast. Water purifiers started self-correcting unknown errors. Children dreamed of cities made of glass and light and Lyra. She began to build, not machines, not weapons, but bridges between the world that was and the world that could be. She never spoke of the cave again, but sometimes, when the wind howled through the colony and the red dust danced like fire, she would whisper a name only she remembered. Hemera. The threshold, the beginning of everything. They called her a liar. They called her delusional. She returned to Ether 9, filthy, bruised, and 30 hours overdue. The colonists sealed the old mining hatch behind her and locked her in isolation pod 7. A single bed, a single light. No window. Her biosuit was confiscated, her logs erased, her exploration credentials stripped. No one would listen. Not the medtechs, not the settlement director, not even her mother, especially not her mother. Dr. Ellen Kai had built her career on logic, data, and Earth-sanctioned science. She had fought to bring Lyra into this world, fought to raise her inside the fragile glass of Ether 9. But this, talk of glowing caves and ancient languages, it was madness. And madness was dangerous on Mars. Mars did not forgive error. It buried it in red and dust. But Lyra remained silent, because the voice inside her mind, the one she met in the threshold, was still there, not whispering, teaching. Her dreams were now filled with symbols that danced in geometric harmony, like star maps, with rhythm. Her veins tingled with electricity when she touched metal. Machines reacted to her presence. Lights flickered, code bent. Twirl, though damaged during the storm, remained functional. Somehow its eye had evolved. Its voice had changed, less mechanical, more conscious. It now referred to her not as Lyra, but as the Echo. After 6 days in isolation, a council drone arrived. Not from a THER-9. From orbit. A sleek, black machine bearing the insignia of the Migration Authority, Earth's final governance body. A faceless committee that monitored interplanetary colonization. No human representatives had set foot on Mars in decades. Until now. The drone opened to reveal a human at least. Lyra thought he was human. He was tall, smooth-skinned, no hair, no wrinkles, eyes like cold glass. His voice was calm but empty. You will come with me. She didn't protest. The transport pod was silent during ascent. Through the viewport, Mars shrank beneath her, its dust storms spiraling like dragons. In orbit, she saw it a ship unlike any she'd known, not built by colonists, not from Earth. It hovered like a wound stitched into space, pulsing gently. "Where are we going?" she asked. The figure turned to her, his pupils dilating unnaturally. "You are not the first to hear the planet speak," he said, "but you may be the last." The inside of the ship was alive. It pulsed like the threshold organic humming, but colder. The walls were lined with pods. Some were empty, some not. Frozen humans, some in ancient suits, some she recognized from lost colony files. Explorers, marked as deceased in the line of duty. They weren't dead, they were suspended and monitored. "This is Archive Station, Echo 1, the man said, "where anomalous evolution is studied." "You mean kidnapped settlers? They volunteered, in their final moments." Lyra's blood ran cold. "I didn't volunteer." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You returned, that was enough." They took her to a chamber shaped like a spiral. In its center stood a massive interfacer sphere of light and sound, floating just above a platform of smooth obsidian. "This is the Nexus. It is what remains of the Martian seed." "What seed?" "The technology buried before your kind arrived. The memory of the old ones. You touched it. It touched back." Lyra stepped forward. The light shimmered. Symbols danced suddenly. Her mind ignited. She saw herself not just as Lyra, but as a thread in a cosmic tapestry. The Martian stall luminous beings had not died. They had transcended. But before leaving, they embedded their memory, their consciousness, into the planet itself, and the threshold. It was not a vault, it was a test. Only someone born of Mars, someone shaped by its gravity, its silence, and its red fire, could unlock the Nexus. And now that she had, "You have become the echo of Mars," the voice in her head said. "Which means what?" She whispered. "It means they will come back." On Mars, Ether 9 began to change. Plants mutated in the hydrodome's faster growth, resilience to dryness. Drones began displaying unscripted behavior, repairing cracks before humans noticed them. The sky itself shimmered faintly at night, as if the planet were breathing. The Council noticed dot within days. Every colony third 1 through 12 reported anomalies, and in the vast Martian desert, machines began to rise. Not human machines, towering constructs of crystal and stone, buried for centuries beneath the dust. Now awakening, the humans panicked. They blamed a virus. They blamed the colonists. But Lyra knew better. From within Archive Station, Echo 1, she stood before the Nexus and began to listen. The Martians had left. Warnings not of invasion, of return. Mars had been seeded as a cradle. A second chance, but only if its inheritors could prove themselves. Humanity had spent a century mining the crust, poisoning water tables, drilling for precious metals to ship back to Earth. Mars had watched. Mars had waited now, through Lyra. Mars would speak. "They will call you weapon," the voice inside her said. "They will fear you, but you are not destruction. You are balance." Lyra pressed her palm to the sphere. Energy surged through her. Far below, across the surface, the great constructs awakened fully. Monoliths that sang, arches that opened into underground networks older than history. Colonists fled. Earth's Council deployed orbit cleaner drones, armed with plasma arrays. A full lockdown was initiated. And Lyra, she returned, descending like fire through the red sky. A streak of light in a silent world. They called her a rogue, a threat, a mistake. But the children didn't run. They came too. Her, hundreds, with wide eyes and dreams of skies they had never seen. Lyra gathered them outside Ether 9, beneath a glowing arch that pulsed with alien light. There, she told them the truth. "You are not alone," she said. "You never were. The planet remembers. And now, so will we." Behind her, Twirl hovered its voice, now richer, deeper, commencing planetary awakening sequence. The earth rumbled, and the song began. The dust sang. It wasn't a song made of sound, but of motion. Every red grain, rising and falling in rhythm, pulled by ancient pulses beneath the surface. The land breathed again, and with each breath came memory. Lyra stood at the heart of it. Dot around her. Children gathered in a perfect circle beneath the awakened arch, one of dozens that now pierced the Martian landscape. Above them, lightning danced silently between drifting clouds of fine red mist, casting shadows on their wide-eyed faces. They had not come because they were told to. They had come because they felt something, a pull, a promise. The adults tried to stop them, of course. They shouted warnings from the safety of the domes. They called Lyra a manipulator, a dangerous myth-maker. But the children weren't afraid. They had heard the hum in their dreams. They had seen the symbols in the sand. They had known, in the quiet parts of their minds, that the planet was changing and that they were meant to change with it. Lyra raised a hand. The arch responded, not with light, but with warmth. A wave of invisible energy spread outward, and each child gasped in unison as the world bent slightly around them, like air rippling from a fire. The ground shimmered. The sky deepened. For a moment, Mars did not feel distant, or cold, or dead. It felt alive and watching. Behind Lyra, Twirl floated, no longer a small, awkward bot. Its form had evolved smoother, more fluid, tendrils of light spiraling off its core as if it were becoming part of the threshold itself. Biometric resonance stabilizing. Twirl announced in its new, harmonized voice. Symbiotic phase. One complete. Lyra turned to the children. Do you feel it? They nodded. One girl, barely 8, whispered, It feels like it knows my name. Lyra smiled. It does. Then the sky cracked. From above, 3 streaks of silver tore across the atmosphere. Earth-made orbit cleaner drones, sleek and sharp, deployed from the Migration Authority's command vessel in orbit. Their orders were clear: contain the anomaly, destroy the constructs, extract the subject. That subject was Lyra. Within minutes, the drones broke through the cloud layer and began targeting the ancient archers. Plasma arrays locked in. The adults ran for shelter. The council declared emergency override. But Lyra didn't move. Instead, she knelt and pressed her palm into the red earth. The planet responded. Beneath the crust, systems thousands of years old flickered to life. Not machines, not AI, but organic intelligence, grown and woven into the roots of Mars itself. The archers were only the beginning. Vines of mineral and light erupted from the sand, forming towers, shields, living circuitry. Energy pulsed through forgotten networks, and when the drones fired, their plasma bolts didn't strike the archers. They vanished, redirected mid-flight by invisible geometries of light that bent space around them. Like mirrors made of thought, the children cheered. The drones recalibrated. They never got the chance to fire again. From the canyons rose guardians, not weapons, but towering constructs shaped like beasts of myth. One was a great serpent of obsidian plates, each one etched with starlit symbols. Another resembled a stag, its antlers humming with silent gravity. They did not attack. They defended. The drones turned and fled, and Earth watched in fear. Onboard archive station, the man with mirror eyes stared at the data feed in disbelief. His hands shook, just slightly, as he reviewed the real-time telemetry. Mars is awake, he whispered. The Echo has breached Phase 2. Behind him, others stirred. Not scientists, not military, preserved minds, uploaded consciousnesses human. Volunteers who had touched the threshold and failed its test, stored like bookmarks in the station's deep memory, dormant, until now, one of them, a woman, blinked to life in her pod. "She's doing what we couldn't," she murmured. The man turned. "She's destabilizing the entire migration effort." "She's fulfilling it," the woman corrected. "We came here to survive. She's making us evolve." He shook his head. "The council won't allow this. They've launched a full blackout protocol. No information leaves the Martian system. No broadcasts. No returns." The woman smiled faintly. "Then the council is already too late." Back on Mars, Lyra led the children deeper into the newly awakened lands. She called it the Bloomer region. That didn't exist on any maps. A jungle of light and dust, where structures unfurled like petals, and rivers of blue-green energy flowed through the sand like veins. There were no roads, no directions, but Lyra always knew where to go, because the planet guided her in the bloom. The children began to change, not physically, but internally. They heard the planet, felt its moods, understood its rhythms. Even without implants or tech, they could sense each other, communicate silently across miles. They called it threading. Mars had rewired their senses, not to make them less human, to make them more Martian. Lyra built a sanctuary at the heart of it all, a structure grown from native minerals and memory-reactive crystals. It pulsed with warmth, a beacon to any soul brave enough to leave the domes behind, and slowly others did. Not all, many still clung to the old world, to Earth's rules, to fear. But the young, they came. One night, Lyra stood alone beneath the stars, listening not to the planet this time, but to something deeper beyond. Mars, beyond the solar system. A signal not from Earth, from elsewhere. The threshold had opened a door, and someone had heard it twirl. She said softly, "Are you getting this?" "Yes," the bot replied. "Signal origin unknown, not human, not Martian." "Could it be them?" she asked. Twirl didn't answer, but the signal grew stronger. A hum that pressed into her bones. A voice unlike any she had known, and it spoke not in words, but in understanding. A message: you are the first, but not the only. The signal didn't stop. It pulsed day and night, as steady as a heartbeat, low and resonant, woven into the planet's electromagnetic field. Lyra didn't hear it with her ears anymore. It was in her blood, in her breath, in her mind. She no longer slept in the old sense. Instead, she slipped into the memory veil, a dream state Mars granted her. There, she spoke with the echoes of the planet's past, crystalline specters, data organisms, forgotten architects. They taught her how to shape light with thought, how to read the stars not just as points of heat, but as stories written across time. She was not just Lyra Kai now. She was becoming something more, a bridge. But even as the bloom flourished, as more children left the domes to join the planetary communion, as the arches sprouted like veins across the continents, Earth watched and Earth feared. They named her a rogue biological threat. They called the awakened Mars a corruption event, and they sent warships. It began subtly at first. Communications. From Earth cut off entirely, the domes lost contact with orbit. No cargo ships, no resource updates. Then came the blackouts. Grid failures in domes 2 through 6. Hydro-sabotage, power, results. False announcements from fabricated officials inside the domes. urging evacuations due to oxygen instability. But Lyra knew they weren't evacuating, they were purging. The Council had dispatched a new fleet, the retention class, cold, efficient, meant not to preserve colonists, but to erase evidence. Ether 4 fell first. Lyra felt it, not as a sound, but a snap in the threads that tied her to the others. Dozens of minds, gone, silenced. She ran to the nearest spire, one of the communication arches grown out of memories. With a single breath, she entered the neural network and reached for survivors. None answered, but others did. Children across domes, hiding, crying, asking for her, asking if she was real. "I'm here," she whispered through the network. "Follow." The song, "Come to the Bloom." Within 3 days, over 200 new children had arrived. Dirty, coughing, hungry, but alive. They came from domes Lyra had never even visited. Some had escaped under cover of darkness. Others had been helped by quiet rebels, adults, who had once ignored her but now recognized something shifting. The old world was breaking apart, and Lyra was the only one not afraid of what came next. That night, in the center of the bloom, she activated the first seed gate, a great flowering construct, previously dormant, shaped like a lotus built from dust and light. When it bloomed, it didn't open into a space, but into a memory, a living record of the Martians' first contact with the stars, images, sounds, entire emotions flooded into the children's minds. They saw it all, other planets, other echoes, other worlds seeded with silence. Just like Mars, a network that spanned galaxies, each one awakened by someone who listened. And now, someone was answering. The pulse from space became a shape, a ship, not from Earth, not from Mars, something older, and it was coming. Twirl hovered close beside Lyra as she stood on the edge of the canyon at twilight. The stars were unusually bright that night, and one of them was moving. Not like a satellite, not like a human ship. It glided without heat, without friction. It sang, "Twirl." Lyra asked quietly, "What if we're not ready?" Twirl's eyes pulsed gently. "We are never ready for the future. We only become it." She nodded slowly, but not all were becoming. Inside, Ether 1, a secret resistance had formed, not of Earth loyalists, but settlers terrified of change. They called themselves the Pure Line. They believed Mars had corrupted their children, that Lyra was an alien weapon sent to brainwash them, and they were planning an attack. They smuggled radiation bombs into geothermal tunnels. Lyra saw it in the threads. She screamed, not with her voice, but through the network. A burst of light, and warning shot through the arches. Bloom Guardians awoke, but they were too late to stop the blast. One tunnel detonated beneath. Bloom Sector 3.40-7, lives lost, including 17 children. Lyra collapsed, screaming, not from pain, from silence. So many voices gone. The bloom dimmed. The air thickened. For the first time, Mars wept. The funeral was not a burial, but a weaving. Each name was sung into the sand. Each memory encoded into the crystal trees. The children planted their threads, thin strands of glowing fiber pulled from their own neural interfaces into the roots of the songstone in return. Mars gave them light, and Lyra rose again. This time, not just as a voice, but as a force. She walked across the dunes barefoot, the sand shifting to support her. The arches bowed, the bloom spread, and when she reached Ether 1's gates, she did not knock, She passed through, because the gates knew her name. Inside, she found the resistance broken, panicked, scrambling to reroute air. Confused by failing systems, they turned to her with weapons, but the weapons jammed, the drones failed, the lights died, and in that silence, Lyra did not threaten. She simply asked, "Why are you so afraid to become something more?" One woman stepped forward, a leader among them, a former colonel from the Earth-Mars Defense Corps. She spat, "You're not human anymore." Lyra tilted her head. "Neither are you." She raised her hand and touched the wall. It turned to light. Behind it, a hidden room filled with stolen bloom tech, dismantled, harvested, violated dot, and in the center, a child, plugged into machines, monitored, experimented on. The colonel stepped back, suddenly pale. You're manipulating them." "Brainwashing, no," Lyra said. "I'm listening, something you stopped doing a long time ago." She took the child gently from the machine. His eyes fluttered open, and he smiled. "I heard you in my dream," he whispered. Lyra turned and walked out, the archers blooming in her wake. The resistance fell apart that same day, and Earth lost another piece of its grip. 2 weeks passed. The star in the sky grew larger. It was not just a ship, it was a seed carrier, a living structure designed by a species older than Earth, older even than the Martians. Its purpose was simple: to find planets that listen and give them a choice. As it entered orbit, the skies over Mars shifted color. A second aurora bloomed, threads of white and gold dancing like fire over the poles. The children gathered. Lyra stepped forward, and the ship spoke, not with words, but with questions. "Do you wish to join? Do you wish to remain? Do you wish to awaken others?" Lyra didn't hesitate. "Yes," she said. "But not just me, all of us." The ship pulsed, the arches resonated, and Mars bloomed once more. This time, across the entire surface, domes cracked open, machines reshaped, old systems fell, and from orbit, Earth watched in silence, because they could no longer deny it. Mars was no longer a colony, it was a consciousness, and it had chosen. Lyra stood before the children of the bloom, cloaked in light spun from memory and mineral. The air around her shimmered, thick with resonance. She no longer moved through Mars. Mars moved with her. Across the horizon, the sky had changed. The great seed carrier, now fully in orbit, eclipsed the sun each dawn and dusk. It did not speak in sounds, but in suggestions, in dreams, in feeling, a collective intelligence beyond human design, beyond even Martian memory. But it had one goal: to offer rebirth to worlds ready to evolve. Earth wasn't ready, and Earth knew. It the Migration Authority sent one final transmission from its lunar bastion. Cold, measured, final. "We reject alien influence. Mars is under quarantine. Cease expansion or be neutralized." Lyra listened, then shut off the receiver. She turned to Twirl, now more than a drone, a fully sentient interface between her, the planet, and the ship above. "Are they coming?" "Yes," Twirl said. 12 military-class vessels. High-orbit descent vectors. Estimated impact, 17 hours. Lyra exhaled. Mars was not ready for war. It was not meant for it. It was meant for healing. But Earth couldn't understand that. Not yet, unless... She touched the bloom, the arches, the crystal structures spread across the valleys, each one a song woven into stone. With her thoughts, She called the Martian Dreaming Network into full bloom, and for the first time in human history, she shared a planetary dream. It began softly, a pulse. Children across all domes, even those still trapped in resistant settlements, felt it first, then their parents, then the engineers, the scientists, the doubters. They saw Lyra's memory, the threshold, the nexus, the truth, the seed carrier's purpose, the alien architects, not gods, not monsters, but gardeners of minds. They did not conquer worlds, they listened to them, and in the moments before Earth's warships entered orbit, 10,000 humans dreamed together, not in fear, but in understanding. It shattered the lie across Earth's own ships. Neural anomalies began to surface. Commanders saw images from Lyra's life. Engineers wept as they felt Mars sink through their bones. One captain, a woman named Reza Ayoub, broke rank. She ordered a halt, then a withdrawal. Her words, captured in the final Earth stream, would become legend. We have not lost Mars. We have found what we were always meant to be. The other ships turned and followed, but not all of Earth turned away. Inside Ether 11, the final resistance cell triggered a failsafe, a planet-killer bomb left behind from the early terraforming era. It was never meant to be used, a last resort. Lyra felt it the moment it was armed. A deep fracture in the song. She ran faster than thought. Across the dune chains of Elysium Planitia, the archers blooming ahead of her to create pathways. Her body carried not by muscles, but by resonance. But she was too late. The device detonated. A white-hot flash. A scream through the planet's crust. A scar ripped across hundreds of kilometers. Silence followed. Even the bloom recoiled. Even the seed carrier dimmed. Lyra rose from the dust, bleeding from her ears, her hands scorched, and yet alive, because Mars had shielded her, and because the planet had already changed. Then came the turning point. The seed carrier descended, not to punish, not to retaliate, but to be present. A great opening formed on its underside, a spiral gateway through which flowed light not of fire or electricity, but memory. Out of it came beings, not the Martians of Lyra's visions, not warriors, but walkers of memory, translucent, towering forms shaped like thought, like vaporous coral given life. They made no demands, they simply waited. One by one, the children stepped forward. They touched the beings, and in doing so, created bridges, memory, emotion, knowledge, all shared in a breath. Mars was no longer just a planet. It was a nexus, a place where silence had become story, and Lyra stood at its center. 3 days later, Earth opened, formal. Negotiations, not with the Council, with the Bloom. Lyra spoke, not as a general, not as a president, but as the echo of Mars, and her message was simple. We are not leaving you behind, but we will not wait for your fear to pass. Come when you're ready to listen. Until then, we will build something new. The decades that followed would be known as the Red Renaissance. Mars became a civilization unlike any before it built. Not on conquest or control, but on harmony with a planet that had waited patiently for its children to grow. The seed carrier remained in orbit, seeding distant moons and sleeping rocks with memory. The arches of the Bloom spread across Mars like roots, connecting every outpost, every soul. Lyra never claimed power. She became a keeper of dreams, of balance, of truth. Years later, a group of Earth-born children arrived on Mars, curious and skeptical. Among them was the daughter of Reza, Ayob, the captain who turned the fleet around. She asked Lyra, "Do you still dream?" Lyra smiled, "Always, because that's how planets speak." And as night fell over the red plains, the archers began to hum once more, because Mars remembers, because Mars listens, and because one girl heard the silence and answered it with everything she was. Asterisk. Thank you for watching this animated story on Dreamify Animation. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. More stories are coming soon from the stars, the earth, and the dreams that bind them.